I'm going to talk about lordosis, kyphosis, and scoliosis. So these are all different back issues. Someone asked me recently whether Reviv One helps with this, and so I wanted to cover this because the answer is yes, but I think I should explain more. In 2014, when I was doing Starecta, so I've talked about this a few times in the past, but Starecta was where I started when I first had major issues, and it helped me a lot. And Starecta focuses very much on posture, right? So if you look at the Starecta website, if you know Marina, the founder, the key things he talks about in regards to Starecta is fixing postural issues. I don't really position Revive that way, but they're essentially the good part of what both of them do is exactly the same. Right? Like whatever Starecta is doing to fix your posture, Reviv is doing the same, and I would argue that it's even doing it more efficiently. Let's talk a little bit more about these postural issues. So lordosis is when you have this excessive inward curve of the spine in the cervical, which is the neck region, and as well the lower back. So when people have this, usually they complain of some back pain or tightness. It limits their flexibility to some extent, right? And it's all about like what degree of lordosis or any back issue you have, right? Like most people have a bit of a back issue. Only professional athletes and models really have only perfect spines. Kyphosis is when you have an exaggerated outward spine in the thoracic region. So this is the upper back. And that results in kind of a rounded or hunched back appearance, right? I never really had that. I think that is what Marino, the founder of Starecta, had. And I think people that have this to, a more extreme level are very self-conscious of it, right? Because it kind of, you can tell when people have this, and generally associated with aging, but it can happen at any age. And then there's scoliosis, which is when your spine kind of has a bit of an S to it. And I would argue that, again, most people probably have some level of scoliosis, it's all about how much. For most people, scoliosis, if it's a light scoliosis, like you can't even tell. Like when you look at their back, even if they weren't wearing a shirt, you wouldn't really be able to tell that they have a scoliosis. Like you really need an x-ray or something to see it. So everything depends on the severity. Some context on me, my back's changed lots in the last 10 years. And it's honestly not the thing I pay the most attention to because I don't care that much about my appearance, and I'm more caring about my function. But of course, your appearance changes. I tend to pay attention, just to how I feel about, health and energy and whatnot, rather than like specifically paying attention to the curvature on my back. But it changed a lot, up and down as I got better and worse. When I took this thing to the end the first time, which I think is around 16, I remember how like the whole spine went clack, clack, clack. And I felt 1 or 2 inches taller, and you just know that like, wow, your entire spine is in the correct position. You just feel like a different person. I remember my vision got brighter. Like everything just seemed to work better, almost instantaneously. And when I was bad, I could tell that my posture was a lot worse, and I probably had some level of scoliosis and probably more lordosis than kyphosis. So why do I think these things develop? So my view is that your spine, when I talk about your curves be flattening and this deflating your skull, I also talk about this mangling or twisting the spine as a result of the deflating of the skull, which is a result of the flattening of the curvus B. So these things are all different angles to the same exact problem, which is why like you don't get deflating of the skull and flattening of the curvus B without some level of a spinal issue like lordosis or kyphosis or scoliosis, right? You will never see a person flatten their curvus B and it not impact their spine with one of these conditions. Like that will never happen because these are just all different sides of the same exact problem. And how you solve it, right, is not any different. So when I talk about you need a rubber mouth guard, or you need to add vertical height or composite to your teeth to fix the problem, and to inflate the skull, right? Usually I say, okay, that is also correcting your body. And when I talk about correcting your body, I am essentially talking about correcting conditions like lordosis and kyphosis and whatnot. And as you do that, you get more flexible, right? And that's something that I do notice as I'm improving constantly. And when I finished this a long time ago, like I remember the flexibility was amazing. Like it was by far the most flexible I felt. And you just feel really strong. Like your body is just naturally strong. And so I kind of define the end when you break through all the soft tissue and whatnot, that your body should essentially have almost perfect flexibility by definition. So one example, and this is some couple months back, I was playing paddle, which is, this smaller tennis that they came up with in Spain. It's gotten popular here in Bangkok. My wife plays a couple times a week. She had a couple friends out. She asked me to play, and I generally I don't do any exercise. I don't do any sports because I'm finishing this recovery process, and I don't view that it really helps much. But I agreed to play because she asked me to, and it was kind of a social event, and it was a nice thing to do. So I went out and I played, and I just, I had 47, I hadn't done really any exercise in over 4 years, and I got out and play with them. They were all about 10 years younger than me. Two of them were taking lessons on paddle, including my wife, for a number of months. And I got out there and I just surprised myself because I kicked their asses. I was just so much better than all of them. And as to why that is, yes, I used to play, big tennis when I was a kid, and I never played competitive, but I used to go to camps, and so I knew how to hit a ball correctly. And so that, some of those movements were always there at my foundation. So that was definitely part of it. But the other part was just my hand-eye coordination, the strength of my, hitting was just much better than I had expected. And the reason I say expected is because I had played big tennis in 2020 against a friend who had asked me to come out. And 2020 was the year that I was very messed up. And he was a relatively amateur, one of these guys who just decided recently that he was going to try tennis for the first time and play. And he was a relatively good athlete, but new to tennis. And I, played tennis as a kid, but was in very bad shape. And he just wiped me up. I couldn't hit a ball straight. It was the most frustrating thing. I just refused to go and play with him after that. I don't think he even wanted me to play because I was so bad. It didn't matter. I just couldn't hit the ball over. So whereas I think I messed up about 80% of my shots that day playing big tennis, when I played paddle recently with these people, if I were to break down the percentage wise, I probably only messed up maybe 2 to 3% of shots. I think the entire 1 hour, 1 hour and a half that we played, I maybe messed up 1 or 2 shots and probably hit around 100 correctly, if not more. So it was just completely different, right? And this is no training, no effort, just my body, everything just worked much better. And for me, I was just wow, yeah, this is how it works. One last thing I'd say is, how is the Reviv One different from Starecta? Because a lot of people have tried Starecta, or they know about Starecta, and is known for its posture. And so they asked me, okay, what is Reviv One any different? And so the way that I would describe it is they both believe in adding some vertical height. It believes in this molded lever that I do not believe in. I've been correcting myself for several years now, and I have an open posterior bite, and I just wear this rubber mouth guard to sleep, and the rubber mouth guard for the most part has contact on the front teeth and not the back. So from my perspective, there is no way that Starecta can be right about certain things that it says. And the other big thing is that Starecta indexes your bite. Indexing is a dental term. They talk about index splints, and my way of thinking about it, which is maybe not the way that dentists properly define it, but I look at it as indexing means it's holding your jaw in a very specific position, right? And if you think about Starecta, you're biting into this polymorph plastic in a set position, and it's holding your teeth there, right? So it's essentially holding your jaw in a certain position vis-a-vis your upper jaw. And this, I think, is bad, right? It can improve for a little while, but then the thing is, your jaw needs to be mobile because it's stretching soft tissue. That is what I've learned. So you might be stretching soft tissue in one position, but later on that kind of releases and you need to stretch the soft tissue somewhere else, and your jaw's not positioned to be able to stretch anymore, and so you are not progressing and potentially even making it worse. So that is kind of what I was dabbling with Starecta for years, going on and off, trying to figure this stuff out. And that is what I concluded. And Reviv, wearing a rubber mouth guard, your jaw kind of moves constantly, right? It's not, you don't bite into a set position on the rubber guard, right? It's allowed to slide. And there's not a lot of room for the rubber guard to slide around in your mouth, but it does, right? And so the rubber guard can keep changing positions to continually stretch that soft tissue. And that is something that I think is key to continuing your progress. So that's how I view how Reviv is different from Starecta. Thanks.